our Finance and Performance meeting. But before we get into the agenda, I would like to ask Councillor Rea if you would open us up. Karakia.
Morena tātou. Kia inoi tātou. E te atua tēnei mātou i tuku whakamoemi te atua ki a koe i tēnei. E te atua arehina mai i a mātou i roto i ngā mahi kei mua i a mātou. Mana ki te a mai mātou hei awhi, hei poepoi i a mātou kia kimi ngā hua i ngā tikanga kia whai hua ana tō tātou hāpuri o te tai rāwhiti. Koenei tā mātou i nui atu ki a koe i tēnei ata i runga i te ngō tautama i hukaiti. Amended.
Kia ora, Councillor Rea, thank you very much for that. Whānau, we have I'll start with our apologies. Our Mayor has been very clear that she's coming back from Wellington this morning, so hopefully she does arrive here, but we have an apology for lateness from the Mayor and Councillor Thompson, and also a full apology from Councillor Taumata. Do I have a mover?
Aye.
Councillor Rea, seconded by Councillor Cranston. All those in favour? Aye. Opposed? Carried. I move us. Are there any declarations of interest? Again, like usual, if when we get to the paper and there is something that you need to declare, then feel free to declare that at the time of that paper. I obviously have a declaration of interest with our first decision report this morning. I would also like to welcome Councillor Pāhuru and Councillor Parata on Zoom. So I'd just like to remove Councillor Parata's apology because we had thought that your apologies had still carried on from before Councillor Parata. I'll bring us back to the declarations of interest. Feel free to mention those as we get to those papers. Morena Councillor Thompson. I will move us to page 5 to. Oh, sorry, were there some declarations here? Right, I'll move us to page 5. Our names. Moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Taufa. Any feedback in terms of accuracy? If not, I'll put the minutes.
Just one query.
Yes, Councillor Taufa.
Page museum. Just about the museum report about the leaking roof. I was just querying whether that has been done yet. It was 2 months ago, this report, and that was waiting on getting a signing of a lease before you get the roof fixed. And I've been reading that a few times, and it just seems round the wrong way. If you've got a leaking roof, it would seem it's a bit of a priority to get fixed. So can I have a report on that, please? Update?
I can comment on that through the chair. So we met with the museum trusts. There is still going backwards and forwards around what the best way to fix the roof. We have provided them with some options around what we might be able to do. They could take a grant fund and then go and seek some more funds to complete that. And we are close to resolving the lease issue.
So
and I know what you're saying
the roof
around.
is still leaking.
I don't know if the roof is actually leaking, like still leaking. I think we may have done some patch-ups in between, but there's still some more comprehensive work to be done.
It's been an ongoing issue for several years, and I know there has been work done on the roof. Whether it's been a complete job or not, I'm not sure about, but it's definitely something they're putting a lot of work into.
It just seemed to me like with any roof that leaks, the longer it leaks, the more damage it does, and the cost ends up back on us. So.
Yeah.
So they didn't raise that at all when they met with myself in 2 weeks ago. It was more around let's move forward, get the lease signed, get the whether they take the funds as a grant or whether they let us get in there and do it. So they didn't raise that there on.
Okay. Right, thank you very much, Ms. Thatcher-Swan. I also do want to. Actually, I'll move these minutes, but then address the action register. Is there any other comments in regards to the minutes? If not, I will put them. Being moved by Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Taufa. All those in favour? Aye. Opposed?
Yeah, I had something from the action register too.
Yeah, well, like the action register kind of does speak to what Councillor Taufa was talking about.
Yeah, I think it's really inappropriate, this action sheet. cafe rent, can the museum explore the opportunity to recoup money from the cafe's cheap rent? Now that is so inappropriate. The comment come from one of the councillors suggesting the rent was too cheap. We got explained that it was cheap, it wasn't making a lot of money, it was something that was of value to the museum having the cafe there. We've got no idea that it's cheap rent, you know, it's an operational issue with the museum, and that should not be on our public action register. The only thing that it's going to achieve is driving the tenants out. That's the only thing that this can achieve. And, you know, operationally, the museum is in a relationship with the cafe, and we should just leave them to it. It's not appropriate for us to be on our action sheet the way it's worded.
I do just, like, in reflection, I do just want to make it clear, though, that you are correct, Councillor Cranston. This was part of our comments that were made around this table. So I would also want to caution us on the things that we might be saying at this table, because then they do get documented inside of in here. So it's not completely inaccurate that phrase is in here, as it was something that was shared by a councillor. However, I do take your point.
Supplementary. I mean, I counted that point. It doesn't say anything about the point being counted. It's the opinion of one councillor.
Yes.
Who's coming on our action register.
Which brings me to the next point. In support of originally what you had said, maybe we just need to make sure that these things are formed up a bit tighter in the action register. Councillor Allen.
As a councillor that made the comment, I'll own up to it.
No, you didn't.
It was me.
I was specifically
Just presuming
You were thinking it.
I'm surprised to see it on that. Actually. But anyway, I did some research around it, and they are not paying the commercial rate that the other cafes.
We're now starting to discuss organisational personal finances in a public space. It is entirely inappropriate. And also, as Councillor Cranston had pointed out, that this was entirely operational, and as is indicated in the action register, that between the chief executive, the mayor, the museum director, and the new chair, that there's a commitment going forward that there will be regular catch-ups with a no surprises approach. Councillor Reid?
So can we move to have the cafe rent taken from the action register? Removed from the action register? We agree that that's an operational issue. That's for the museum to sort out. It's not actually within the interest of this council to get involved in those matters. So can we have the action removed from the action register?
100%.
Cafe rent?
100%, because, like, from a procedural point of view, there has been an action taken, so this will actually be removed from our action register. Again, we just need to make sure that we're wording these things correctly moving forward, because, again, just to reinforce Councillor Cranston's point, in isolation will be how the community will interpret that, rather than in the fullness of the discussion that had. I don't want us to get us stuck on the action register. I know this is we're page 13. We're at page 13. So unless there's something really desperate of me to say, Councillor Alden.
Yeah, I find this difficult to work with, because this is a finance and performance meeting. We are responsible for the funds of our ratepayers, and if something comes across our desk that indicates that something is not perhaps to our ratepayers' benefit, we should not hold back on it.
Yeah, I would advise you to send that through to our CFO or through to the CEO, and then they can follow up on it to build a paper that we, as an entire council, can then be privy to all of those kinds of information. But I mean, we've all had this discussion, and a full discussion about the museum at the last finance and performance meeting. So I've considered that we've actually had a robust discussion around the finance and performance, and I also have assurance from our CE and from the mayor via the action register that there is a commitment to have those conversations with the museum. I'll move us to page 14, which is our governance work plan. That's there for noting. Leave of absence, acknowledgements, and tributes. Actually, I do have an acknowledgement today. It's my son's birthday today. I've kept the humour alive for 25 years. So happy 25th birthday, my son. Public input and petitions, extraordinary business, notice of motion. I'll take us to page 15, which is the GHL statement of intent. Obviously, I've accomplished with this paper, but not so strong enough that I can't still chair this meeting. I do want to preface it. Oh, actually, I'll hand it over to Gisborne to speak to. Then we can get into it.
So basically, this is an annual process, so we go through the statement of intent. It is received by us by 1st of March. We have a time to consider that, which we did within the April meeting, and then you had a subject to the statement of intent for a workshop that you actually also had with GHL. So this is basically for form. From after your any of the feedback that you actually had from that, what were the changes, and this is the final statement of intent. So there has been a fairly rigorous review and a part to engage also with GHL. And so this part here is the final adoption of that statement of intent within our timeframes, which is to be by the 30th of June, so it acts on the 1st of July. Happy to take any questions from this paper.
Thank you, Ms. Foreman. Do we have any questions? Moved by Councillor Francis, seconded by Councillor Greer. We have well workshopped this, and so this is the final step for this. If we move by Councillor Francis, seconded by Councillor Gregory, all those in favour? All those opposed? Carried. I'll now take us to page 32, our annual plan. I want to remind us as well with the annual plan that the focus is on the finance and affordability part of these papers, right? We do, as community-minded people and community-hearted people, we do tend to kind of start going into those operational parts of it. We just need to remind us about the finance-specific parts of the annual. Ms. Foreman.
Thank you. So just actually recap, we do this every year. It's part of it. We started the process, if you like, the 3-year plan. And in the 3-year plan, that had the draft estimates, which happened to be really December 2023. After the sort of a lot of unknowns, what we needed to do from recovery, we then developed a 3-year plan, which is we're currently in the first year of that plan, and the first year of that plan is also the annual plan. So now the process allows us to review, which was 18 months ago, what are the changes that have occurred since then, and what is the annual plan. So as part of that process, we adopted the draft annual plan, which was in February. It said what were the changes from there, what were the different things, where we were in line with what we had consulted with. But we also acknowledge before we finally adopt the annual plan, which is in the latter part of this month, that there may be changes which occur to projects that need to traverse 2 financial years that won't be completed by the 30th of June this year, that needs to go into next year. So fundamentally, it's a part of any other changes that council's made the decisions. We're trying to incorporate that for that annual plan. So when we do an annual report for next year, we've got a really good solid base of what we can actually hold ourselves to account. So this is basically those known changes. So we're incorporating in that. So we've got the final adoption, which is in the end of this month. I'm happy to take any questions with it, and just know that there is a cascading part of the information that comes from this, from the financial report that says where we're up to, and then what do we need to change over. But as I say, happy to take any questions.
Awesome, thank you, Ms. Foreman. Any questions? Councillor Alwyn.
Thank you, Chair. So on page 35, woody debris removal. Just trying to get my head around, in the minutes of the last meeting, we had 2.2 million overspend, and then we were topped up, well topped up obviously, because now we have a carryover of 5.4 million. So that's unspent at this stage and available for spending. Why is it that the debris money we are well topped up on, and yet the roading fund, as we'll see later on, we always seem to be in arrears? Is there a reason for that?
So the, I'm a bit confused, but just let me understand it. So the woody debris is, we've got funds that were from DIA, NPD, and we're saying that some of that won't completely be finished by the 30th of June, but we know it's going to occur and probably in the first quarter of next financial year. And it amounts to this stage at about 5.4. It's just the timing of that within the parts of it we don't lose, it's just recognising of that. Similarly, that's the same thing as with the roading, is we don't lose that funding, but it just is how we're recording it, if you like, in a financial report over traversing those to end of this financial year into next. So there is no real impact to us, but just means that we have to adjust that annual plan to reflect what we're going to be doing and the timing of those funds.
It's not necessarily money in the bank, it's just allocated for carrying over. Okay.
Completed next year, the work will be completed in that piece.
Thank you. Just a question on page 40, and it's got to do with land remediation on reserve land. I see there's 200, again, trying to get around the...
Which line are you looking at? Sorry, Councillor.
Turonga Gardens project. And there's land remediation removal, 165,000 carryover. So how much has actually been spent on that job to date? Do you know? Is that outlined in those figures?
It will probably be in the financial report, which I can get to when we come into the actuals here today. So I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get my... You've got the land stability, and then you've got the one land remediation. Yeah. So it would, I would double check. By the time I get to the financial report, I'll just say,
so those figures, 200 to 365 to 165 carryover, doesn't give us any indication of how much has been spent today?
No, I'll put it in, I'll find out exactly what it is in terms of that, but what it's, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Because if not, do I have a mover for this paper? Moved by Councillor Rita, seconded by Councillor Gregory. All those in favour? Aye. All those against? Carried. Okay, I take us to page 43, which is the Taumata Arowai Levies.
So this is really for information, and it's just to, so you're informed of the additional central government crown fundings that is required for free waters. So for them, as the oversight body, their fees that they have designated, that 82% will come from local government, and so therefore those costs which we didn't have before, we will now be charged, and then we either have that for either collection of rates going forward, or alternatively they will be incorporated into some of the water meter charges which we have for commercial metering. Pretty much it says what it is. These are the additional costs that we actually have to have. We're saying in this particular one, for where we are at next year's annual plan, the costs that we didn't anticipate fully for the amounts that they have, we'll have to do it through some of the absorptions of our budgets that we have, and then accordingly we come to the next year's annual plan, we'll make those adjustments thereafter. but happy to take any questions with regards to this.
Councillor Gregory, Cranston, Thompson, Green.
Thank you. I read this and feel concerned that we want to charge the industrial people for these levies. I think that it's difficult enough out there for people who are trying to do business. 19 businesses like Sedenko are just shrinking, and what we need in this town is businesses thriving. And I just feel that this cost is a cost for all of us, for the whole of the city, and that it should be spread over all of us and not focused on the commercial water users. In this case, it's not a huge amount of money, but I feel quite strongly that it should be shared, and so I would move option 2.
So can I just clarification for the Chair? So what this is, you're quite right, it wouldn't be fair to put those additional charges only for those that are commercial usage. What happens is with production of water, that 40% go to the commercial cost, and that additional cost for the levy appropriated for that is about, as it said in the things, 5 to 7 cents. So you have two choices. You can say that we don't wish that those levies to go up for the commercials by those 5 to 7 cents, and the same as we're not increasing rates in the same point, but just be mindful that that will have to be absorbed. We may not get all of those costs absorbed and carried out through the budgets that we actually have, but it is not the whole amount, it's only in the proportion of the amount of water that is produced for the commercial metering.
Just supplementary then, can you tell me that this levy that we're getting from central government's Taumata Arowai, which is the stick of the water, of the new water program, what do these levies pay for? That they're getting from every council all around the district? Is it paying for them to have a building in Wellington and to employ some people and wave the stick? Or is it something extra that we're going to get here?
It is for regulatory function that they do, and their costs, their overheads.
That we're paying for?
That's what we're contributing to based on our population base.
Because I see that, I think about 4 million or something is coming from the government, and the rest of it is coming from the 60 whatever councils. But I still feel that it should be a shared expense, and if we can get our town booming and get industry here, that would be the best outcome from what I can see.
Thank you, Councillor Gregory. Councillor Cranston.
Yeah, thanks.
Can it be noted that I still move that option 2?
Yeah, looking at the options, page 46, I see option 1 is the preferred option. It's got reprioritising or deferring planned work. I mean, the number here is not huge, but just in general terms, I think if work is reprioritised or deferred, it would be probably helpful to us to know what that was, because we're out there thinking something's going to happen, and unless it's identified, we're still out there thinking something's going to happen. So when there's reprioritising and deferring, perhaps we could get an idea of what is being done. And the other confusion was option 2. Even though option 1's preferred, option 2 says efficient and transparent and considered to be the most appropriate and cost effective under the Act. So it was kind of contrary to what the preferred option was. So just wondered how it got so favoured with those statements under the preferences.
I think what it was saying that the water services in saying that the costs that are incurred needs, you need to have sufficient revenue to cover the cost. And so therefore, if you've got additional costs, you would say you either raise rates or that you raise the user fees. And our preferred option, option 2, says raise rates by the difference that's come in from the levy, and then also increase the actual user fees by the proportion that needs to occur. Option 1 was saying don't increase rates, use your existing budgets to pay for what it is, but that increase for the commercial, bearing the commercial has the ability to offset some of the tax with the cost with it. It says put up those prices, which we indicated that any prices from the levy that may go up, there will be in addition to. So option 1 is to use within our budgets that we have and then put up the levy only in the proportion that is produced for the commercial users, which is, and it's not the full amount, it's only 40% of the production cost, and then that cost is between 5 and 7 cents per metre. So that is our preferred option. The second option is to increase rates to cover the full cost.
It wasn't so much that, it's just the wording that option 2 was supposedly more appropriate and more cost effective.
Yeah,
And the identification of reprioritising and deferring?
sorry, can you just remind me where that is in that?
Option 1, page 46, it's the preferred option speaks about reprioritising and deferring planned work as way of payment. And just as a concept, probably not that critical in this circumstance with the quantum of the money, but in general terms, if stuff is reprioritised or deferred, it would be helpful to council to know what it is, because we're out there thinking something's going to happen, but it's been deferred or reprioritised.
I think it would be the operation of the amounts, as you said. It isn't that great in terms of the 10 million times of budgets that you need to do the three waters, and so it's going to be something within that they're going to say, you know, there isn't, I couldn't say specifically, but it wouldn't be a material difference.
Thank you, Councillor Cranston. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Rea, then Councillor Parata.
Yeah, I had a few issues as council government on this. Firstly, the timing, the submissions over holidays, when everyone's on holidays. I read some varied submissions, so I was quite happy with our council submission, but I sort of took it that it didn't really matter what we wrote, it was happening anyway. For me, it's just another cost that government's taken off themselves and put on council, and people sort of look at council, well, you're putting our rates up again, where it's actually government that keeps putting costs on us that we can't do anything about it. So it's not us putting rates up, it's government putting our local rates up. So yeah, this isn't a cost that council's put on. It's a cost that used to be done by Ministry of Health. Now they've set up a new entity and council's paying for it. So basically, how are we going to absorb it? Yeah, I'm not keen on putting rates up to pay for it. So yeah, if we can, I'd like to pay for it out of our own budgets. But yeah, like Andy said, to a certain degree, I don't want to miss out on projects that we sort of have to do. But yeah, it's a cost we sort of have to suck up. So I'm leaning towards option 1, yeah, solely because I don't want rates to go up, but also taking on board what Andy said, I don't want to see what projects are getting dropped, because I'd hate to see a significant project get dropped because of it. Thanks.
Councillor Thompson, Councillor Rea.
Yeah, I suppose, thank you for the report. First and foremost, same as Councillor Thompson, you know, the concern over central government once again left us with no voice, no alternative to this bill. The system of Taumata Arowai seems heavily in favour of water metering practices with no regard to the context of each region's landscape and makeup when it comes to providing water to our community. Once again, a one-size-fits-all that fails to meet the current needs of our community. So, but that being said, we do need to move forward. I too am not in favour of option 2. At this point, I don't want to put up rates. I'm in support of option 1, But I do want to know, in terms of making the decision for option 1 now, given that it was a cost that we weren't prepared for, moving into the future in the next round, we can then plan for those costs and then possibly move to our option 2 model around the same time, that we know what our water service providing is going to look like, and in line with our planned rates, rises and things like that. Is that right?
Chair, yes, it is. That's what we're proposing.
Okay, yeah, I too am in favour of option 1.
Thank you, Councillor Ria. Councillor Parata.
Morena tātou. I want to be careful about how I say this, but I also can't understand for the life of me what we're getting out of this money that we have to pay to Taumata Arowai. I don't understand the service that we're going to be provided as a region. I don't understand how it's going to help us do anything more than we're already doing. I don't understand how paying a levy to Taumata Arowai improves the water quality for people who are not on the reticulated system. I don't understand what this money will do. I don't feel it's fair for our people to have to pay for it when it's not a service that really will benefit us all, because we already test the water that's being sent out to town supply. And my understanding is that Taumata Arowai have absolutely no plans to improve the water quality anywhere else. My understanding is that being a water regulator is to tell everyone what they're not doing and give us absolutely no solutions about how we could be doing things better. So I'd just like that noted, really, that if I know that we have no control over it, but I think it's important that our whānau and our reporters, potentially if they're sitting in this room, understand that there are some things that we do not have control over. This is one of those things that if central government wanted to fund Taumata Arowai, they should have done it centrally. But instead it's been pushed to council to make decisions around should we rate our people more, or should we find it within our operational budget, which is already thin as it is, and shall we do all of this for a service that we're not sure is going to benefit us in any way? So I just really wanted to say that out loud and hope that the powers that be in the room make sure that that's recorded, because whatever decision we make from this table has an impact on our community, and it is an unfair one.
Kia ora, Councillor Parata. Councillor Pāhurihuriwai, then Councillor Albright.
Ata Marie, kia tātou. I tautoko what's been said by Councillor Parata as well as Councillor Teri. Sorry, Teri, got your name this morning. Councillor Teri, and others in the room. I too feel it's hugely unfair, but as has been stated, it's out of our hands in terms of the decisions that central government make. What concerns me is what other decisions central government might make that have us in a similar situation. You know, all the changes that are happening at the moment that our staff haven't got all the details around. But the increasing of rates, neither of these are good options to me, because they have an impact one way or the other. Like Councillor Parata, you know, there's our reporters in the room understanding that that these types of things are imposed upon us by central government. We don't have any room to move or much say at all. I too don't want to see any of the significant projects that we've already planned for being put aside or not happening, given the very thin budget we already have. I take my hat off to the team that have put the report together and trying to manage what little we have to spend it, do what needs to be done prudently and amongst all of these decisions that we have to make that are coming from central government. So yeah, I just wanted that noted as well, that neither of these options are preferred options for me, and that they are going to have an impact on our communities who are already stretched to the limit, and I'm not in favour of increasing rates anymore either. So I'm with probably option one, although that's not, you know, of the two, that would probably be where I'm leaning towards. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Pahuri-Huriwai. Councillor Aura and Councillor Tupara.
Thank you, Chair. So this levy is taken office to employ a group of people that are going to come back here and check that we are doing what we're supposed to be doing when it comes to setting up our new water system. It's actually a lot cheaper than we would have had to fork out under the Three Waters regime, which was going to cost us a lot of money and possibly get us nowhere, I believe. That's my opinion. The levying of the water rate can be sectioned by us so that the country, people with their own tanks, need not pay any of it. I'm correct. Thank you, Pauline. So we can. It's not going to be across the board rate. It's only going to be those that are water rated. And I agree with Councillor Debbie Gregory's comment about we shouldn't be labouring and loading business on this one, and I believe that's the I'd like to second Debbie's motion that we vote for option two.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aura. Councillor Tupara.
To be the stick in the mud here, I think both options are poor. Not because the report is poor, and I appreciate the work that's gone into trying to find a space between a rock and a hard place for us. And I think this is just too hard on community. Either option one, back to the ratepayers, or option two, go back into business. I'm of the position that we shouldn't pay the levy at all. And we should test with the resolve of this government to fully justify why they need that. I would hope that there were other councils out there that feel the injustice of this. And as has been pointed out, really the value for that levy is not apparent at all. And I think I'd like to hope that the Taira Whiti would be bold enough to say, no, we're not going to pay you that. You don't deserve to have that consideration from a community that's struggling. Not only here in the Taira Whiti, but around the motu. And I don't know if councils do that kind of stuff. Actually stand up and say, you can push us, but enough's enough. And so, with respect to the authors of this report, I can't support either of these options. Not because it's a bad report, it's a fantastic report. And because it's so good, I believe there is a third option, and that is to deny the government based on the circumstances here in the Taira Whiti. It's basically unfair. And government should be about fairness back to community. And I won't be supporting either option. Thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor Tupara. Councillor Telfer, Councillor Tibble and Councillor Foster.
Yeah, look, I'm in favour of option two, and the reasons why is we've got this levy, which is for a regulator to make sure that our water is safe for drinking. This all came about, as we remember, back when Hawke's Bay had a scare that actually, like, this is what jolted the thing. So it's there for a reason. We're not talking a whole lot of money over the whole scale of our financial package, but I do not think it's fair just to target the business people that are using it. I think it should be across all users. If we had water meters in this town now, we wouldn't be having this discussion. It would be spread across everybody in a proportionate basis. We can do that already because we're taking out the commercial ones that are. That's a percentage, but I do think it should be spread across because businesses are what brings employment into this region, and we need to make sure we don't just use it as a scapegoat to go back, fall back on and say, well, they can pay, because I don't agree with it. So that's the reason I'll support option two. And then also, then it's our job as council to look at, we've got a budget, we've got to manage, and we've got to work within, and if we have to cut something out of it, we have to go and cut something out of it, and that's the reality of any budget. So I don't think we should be scared of saying we're going to miss out on something. It's not going to be something major, but we have to balance it. To not put rates up, we have to balance the budget.
Kia ora, Councillor Telfer, thank you. Councillor Tibble and Councillor Foster.
Morena tātou. I'm in favour of option 1. You point to differential of the raise in rates for option 2. What I like about option 1 is that it states quite clearly you can't do this over a number of years, which means that we're confining it to the space of just this instance and this time. I appreciate the debate speaking to deferred works, but I think that within the capacity of operations to consider how you can take in small ways to meet the 211, that option 1 for me is the only choice. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora, Councillor. So, well, Councillor Foster, and then I'll have a crack up you.
I've got to say something because, I mean, we all, we've obviously, I totally agree with Councillor Tofa, because why we're here is because what happened at Havelock North and also down in Queenstown. And that's why we had 3 waters come through, 10 waters and all that, and here we are now. We've now got an overall organisation that's going to monitor all councils' water, make sure that all councils are up to speed with certain water quality for drinking. So we don't want to go backwards and be where we were, where a lot of councils were before, where they were under, they weren't compliant. And the only way that anybody knew was within those councils. So now we've got an overall Taumata Arowai who is going to be our regulator, and it's up to them to make sure that all councils comply. So for me, it's a small fee that is going to probably, like Councillor Alder said, save us having to do that ourselves, because we'll have someone telling us what our water quality should be and is it up to scratch. And I'm all in favour of that. As far as options go, 1 or 2, it doesn't really worry me, but I've got no problem with actually the fee being charged to us at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foster.
Actually, I do need to make a decision on an option, so I will go for option 2 because it does spread the load widely. It's only a tiny little amount, so I'll go for option 2 as well.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Unfunded mandates from central government is a tale as old as time. This is something that I've seen central government do time and time again. They've provided a mandate to councils, and then they've funded them kind of either not at all or very, very low. So this is just something that happens to us as council. It's just the reality. I do need to remind us where we sit in the chain as well, is that we exist because of the Local Government Act, which is passed by central government. We could we could 100% say no, we're not going to do X, Y, and Z from central government. Central government could, as has been shown and as has been mentioned time and time again, could implement commissioners at their will if they want to. 100% can. We are at their will in regards to how we're legally set up. So being able to go, no, we're not going to do that is not really an option. The other thing I need to mention too is that we've spoken about where this rate will lie. Is we've said that it will remain in the city. It won't remain in the city because our rural communities are actually screaming out for articulation. Some of that stuff has already happened. And what I know of the previous conversations is that when it comes down to responsibility of water quality in the rural communities, whose responsibility does that end up being? It ends up being ours. So Taumata Arowai will 100% be looking at us in terms of rural water quality. That it won't just be focused on the water supply that council's providing here. It will be focused wider than that. As has been the previous conversations, that may not be the forefront conversations happening now, but believe me, there will be conversations happening in the future. So I do just want to caution us in regards to the rate thing that we think we might be talking about, is that will probably end up becoming a thing wider than just the city. I do need to speak to that part. For myself, I'm very supportive of option 1. I think it's the most sensible way forward. I mean, seriously, I'm not running again, but lots of you guys will be. You really want to make a decision that increases rates, like really, like it's not, even if I was running again, this would definitely not be the thing that I would be wanting. I want to do. We keep hearing from our community about efficiencies inside of council, etc., etc. This is one of those places. Like literally, council has presented us this thing, and they've said that we will look at prioritisation, we'll look at these efficiencies, we'll look at like other projects and stuff like that. And then now some of us that have been supportive of efficiencies in council are saying, no, don't want you to look at efficiencies in council, want you to raise rates. I completely, vehemently disagree with that perspective, which is why I'm 100% in support of option 1. However, option 2 has a mover in Councillor Gregory and has a seconder in Councillor Older. If that is to fail, I'm happy to move as what's recommended by our operations team, which is for option 1.
Mr. Chair, might be a division of it.
Oh yeah, we will take a division. But if the first fails, I'm more than happy to move option 1 as our option. Do I have a second?
Wait.
Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson as seconder. You get a right of reply prior to us.
Thanks.
Prior to me putting it.
Now?
Yes.
So I've just had a quick look at the Taumata Arowai website, and so obviously it's not just councils that are under the jurisdiction of the water regulator. It's every person in the country that supplies more than one person with water. So they'll be checking up on everyone, and just will those people, like let's just say I supply water to 3 people, my family living at the bottom of my hill today, will I pay a levy to national, to the government in that case, just like council is required to pay a levy?
For the chair, I don't believe so. It's the fees is applied to the councils that are overseeing it. So what if there was more other things, not just our reticulated water, we would say, okay, then we will remain to apply to everybody. At the moment, we see that the predominant production of water is within the city, and so most of those charges will be there. But if it becomes greater, and they've done it on a population basis, then we would say those that is not considered with the reticulated water, but as for a general, we would say we have to rate that generally for the cost across it. So that's how you capture the recoup of those funds.
So you're saying that people that have their own water supply are not going to need to pay a levy to Taumata Arowai to help fund that part of what their business is?
At this stage, I don't believe that they're doing that. They will apply that charge for the council, and how they recoup those funds, it's up to them how do they decide to charge that.
Okay, so we don't really have all the information that we need to know. But I would just like to say it's just the principle of charging one group of people in the town as opposed to sharing the load of this cost. And so that is why I will stick with my option 2. Thank you.
So was there one thing you wanted to say prior to me putting it?
Yeah, there is the option, if you're doing it on that principle, is that neither of those fees are increased. You do not increase rates for next year, nor increasing the water metering fees, but acknowledging that it will be captured in the following year.
So, and that's once we have our water things set up.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up this morning, but I don't think we've got enough information in front of us to be able to really debate that forward. As it is, we have option 2 moved and seconded and a call for division. So we'll have hands. So those in favour, please raise your hands. Did you need a?
Yeah, I just need a minute. Sorry.
So Councillor Gregory, Councillor Gregory, Councillor Telfer, Councillor Foster, Councillor Parata, and Councillor Aura. Okay. And those who are opposed. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Tibble, Councillor Cranston, Councillor Tupara,
You weren't voting.
Councillor Rea, against, Councillor Wharahinga, and Councillor Pat. Shush, please. Shush, please. Councillor Pahuri-Huriwai. So,
I'll have to check the video, yeah.
so that's failed, I think. Oh, sorry, I was too busy reading the names.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is fair. I'm not going to allow us time to debate again. We've already kind of spoken about both options and stuff like that. I've already moved, and I've already it already has a seconder from Councillor Thompson. So again, all those in favour for what's recommended here on page 44 notes the additional expenditure of 200k. Proves that the additional expenditure will be funded through the option 1 that's outlined on page 46. So all those in favour, hands please. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Tibble, Councillor Cranston, Councillor Wharahinga, Councillor Rea, Councillor Pahuri-Huriwai. And all those against? Councillor Talfo, Councillor Foster, Councillor Alder.
I've got a point of order. How can a councillor vote like this?
Yeah.
My point of order is, how can a councillor vote?
Your point of order needs to be linked to the standing orders. And Councillor Parata. Sorry, Councillor Talfo, Councillor Foster, Councillor Alder, Tupara.
There is a technicality there, Josh.
So
If it's lost, you do have to open the debate again. That's the process. You'd have to offer it to the other if the motion is lost.
Sorry, what are our numbers?
I've got 4 is Thompson, Tibble, Cranston, Rea.
Oh, sorry, what's the number?
Sorry, it was 1, 2, 3, 6 for the first.
6, 4, and sorry, how many against?
6. I've got the names.
I mean, I could be a hard chair and just recognise that the chair has a casting vote and just move us forward. However, I would like us to kind of get to somewhere that where we're able to kind of land collectively together. Is that just one?
If it helps, through the chair, as we were looking through the options, this was primarily about supporting the council to keep the rates down and contain it below that 10% threshold, because if you give that to 11,000, that means that you would be increasing the rates. So we would do everything that we could do to try and reduce what we can manage operationally within the organisation. So hence why that option was put forward, put some squeeze on ourselves and to make us look for the efficiencies so that the ratepayer isn't having to pay more. So that is why that was the preferred option that was put in the report. There wasn't a choice given around the options, but I know we've kind of landed there. So just wanted to give some background to that.
Councillor Thatcher Swan. I will reopen us up for
guidance. It would have to be new information, not relitigating.
Yeah. So yes, new points of discussion, please. I will go to Councillor Parata because she has had her hand up previous to this. Councillor Rea and then Councillor Foster.
Rabbi, thank you for giving us one another opportunity to talk it through. It's clearly a contentious issue for us. I just sort of want to pick up on that point that Councillor Gregory was trying to make earlier around domestic water supply. A domestic supply is when you catch the water yourself and you are, in all intents and purposes, a water supplier. So if you're giving water to your children in your house, you're a water supplier. If you catch your own water if you're at a marae, you're a water supplier. If you're at a school, you're a water supplier. So everyone, even if you're not on the reticulated system, if you're not on the town supply system, you're a water supplier. And so I acknowledge that that there needs to be improved water systems, improved water quality for everyone. My issue is that the regulator does not provide solutions. It just tells us what is and isn't good. And I suppose that's my major issue, is that I don't understand what we're paying for. That's my biggest issue. I don't understand what we're paying for. I don't think we've got any good options, but I do know that it has to be done. So I just wanted to clear that up around domestic supply. Can I just, Nadine, I didn't understand what option you were talking about, where council is going to look for efficiencies. What is that, option 1 or option 2?
Option 1.
That's option 1. Okay, sorry. I'm sort of struggling because I don't want rates to go up either, right? I hate that. I hate every time we have to put it up. But I just can't help but feel that sharing the load is the best way to go, especially when we cannot keep putting pressure on businesses and threatening businesses when that's the thing that puts bread and butter on everyone's table. I'm struggling with all the decisions, but ultimately I think sharing the load is the best way, and council still look for efficiencies to make it cheaper. So I don't know if that's an amendment that everyone can live with, but that's my suggestion.
Thank you, Councillor Pallister. Councillor Gregory, you keep interrupting the debate, please. We're going to Mr. Barry, then Councillor Rea, and then Councillor Foster.
Kia ora koutou. Just related to the last comment about Taumata Arowai, according to the 2021 legislation, it relates to you're regulated if you provide water to people outside your home of residence. So it doesn't capture your own whare, right? But if you're connected, if you have if you're a farm and then have a manager's house as well, served off the same system, then it captures you. My understanding at this point, they haven't changed that. So if you're standalone entities in our townships with your own water system, you don't qualify for regulation. However, if you've got a pipe to your neighbours, you would. That's my understanding of it as it stands now.
Thank you, Mr. Barry. Councillor Rea and Councillor Foster.
Just a partai to staff, how would the removal of the 40% contribution from business affect, obviously you've ran the numbers, in terms of option 1, if that 40% charge to businesses was removed, what kind of effect does that then have on the council?
So that basically, it's probably, I didn't articulate very well, that was the third one. So you'd just be saying that you absorb the 211 for existing budgets and that you don't look to increase the levy onto commercials. That'll be it, full stop. Looking to approve the additional expenditure will be needed through existing budgets, full stop. You don't put it, your charge onto the levies to the commercial users.
And then we would still be able to, once our water entity is set up, and then look to whether there's a larger percentage of it, then we could look to
the following year. We would actually say, let's put up the regime and do the budgets within the third years. Yes.
So can that be an option? Option 1, but the removal of the charge of the 40% to business?
So Councillor Rea, would you like to move 1 as it is, because it's not 1 we're talking about, but the amendment to 2 would be approves that the additional expenditure will need to be funded through existing budgets, full stop?
Yes.
Do I have a seconder for that?
Yep, I'll second it.
Oh, yeah, you haven't seconded anything yet. Councillor Foster?
Yeah, I seconded it, and I was going to totally, we're talking about $211,000. I mean, in the makeup of things, what we actually do is minimal. And I think to absorb $211,000 in 1 year would be quite a good exercise for council to do. It's been seen to be looking at itself rather than charging the outside, and I was totally supportive of that. And that's why, to start with, I wasn't really happy with either option actually, because we're either putting it on business community or the whole community. We don't want to raise rates. We don't want to affect the business community. Let's suck it up ourselves and do it ourselves. So I would go for a revised option 1, or even if that could be an option 3, it's, and that would just solve everything. So we just suck it up and we absorb that $211,000 for the year, and I think that would be quite an easy thing to achieve personally.
Councillor Foster. Councillor Gregory.
Could you tell me what that option is, please? So the option is basically the additional cost of 211 will be funded from existing budgets, with no increase in the levies, no increase in user fees to the commercial users. Yeah. Thanks.
Councillor Tupara.
Thank you, Chair. I think now we've arrived at an option 3, and that's where I was hoping we would end up coming to. I still believe that we should be more defiant as government, because that makes us think differently. And we can't have this only because it's been happening forever, and because we're bound by a piece of legislation that requires us to do. We should challenge that legislation. And like the changing up here of options, we can make some change. And I feel duty served today that we took the time to really hammer out option 1, option 2, and end up with an option 3. I think that's taking into account the fairness of our duty back to our community, and I can 100% support this new approach that Councillor Rea has put forward.
We're still paying the fee.
We are, but we're doing it differently. We're doing it in a way that's more fair to our ratepayers and to our businesses. And sometimes we just have to take that deep breath and suck it in. And it's being brave, perhaps, but it does show some leadership. It shows some a sense of being robust about these kinds of things. And it is quite small, the money at the end of the day, but the principle of the thing is that we stood up and really rattled it through and came out, in my view, something that was far more fair. And that's all we can hope to achieve.
Thank you, Councillor Tupara. So we have a mover for, on page 44, for number 1, unchanged, and then number 2, approves that the additional expenditure will need to be funded through existing budgets, full stop. Been moved by Councillor Rea, seconded by Councillor Foster. All those in favour? Aye. Aye. All those against? Carried. Let's break for a couple of which is the amended rates, remission and postponement policy for consultation. Again, a reminder that this is the deciding on the information that will go out to the community for consultation. Good morning, Ms. Grant. We'll wait for
just before Fiona comes with it, and while we've got the full policy there for you to see it in its entirety, the only changes are relation to the parts, which is in section on the policy. Sorry, I'll get the right page. I had it written here. Page 70 on the gender and 72, that is the things that we're suggesting. Everything else is the policy is there, and in this particular circumstances we're just amending those to go out to consult with those wordings. The first one being on page 70 of the agenda under 4.4D, it said exceptional circumstances. Council must be satisfied that it says for exceptional circumstances, remissions, but it does not cover relief for road closure. We've just extended that unless it's approved by council where the properties are severely affected by a natural calamity over a prolonged period. Just clarification for this to go out to consult. And then the second part is on page 72, which just allows greater flexibility for the council to decide to give remissions of rates where it may be needed. Happy to take any questions, and if there's anything for wider ones, Fiona is here as well.
Thank you very much, Ms. Foreman. Councillor Aldridge.
Thank you, Chair. Jumping to page number 78, number 11.11, permanent costs. Now, I think I'm right in saying that some of this might be beyond council's control, and it may be an IRD push, correct me if I'm wrong, but either way, we should be pushing back on it, I believe, as hard as we can. A permanent crop being rated more than bare land is just outright unfair. A permanent crop does not always increase the overall value of the land, and history shows me, and it's within my memory, where kiwi fruit, grapes and apples have all sold at land value less what it costs to pull them out. So the fact that there is structure and plants on the land doesn't necessarily make it more valuable, it doesn't necessarily give you more income. So to have a rate differential is actually really unfair. Then moving on to the remission period, point 11.3. So can a horticulturalist with a permanent crop apply for a remission under that basis? And can they do it every year or just 1 year?
They can apply for it under that remission to have the value of the crop remitted where it meets the criteria. And yes, they can apply every year.
Every year, thank you. So and when you say meets the criteria, what sort of criteria do they have to meet?
So if you look at 11.4, it's got the criteria here about what remission we will give, and what we do is we get the rating valuer to work out the value of the crop as opposed to the whole value of the property, and then work it in with the policy.
Right. And then getting to the last point, the note really, where the valuation will be done by council. Can the farmer appeal that valuation?
Yes, they have the right to put an objection in when they don't agree with the rating valuation.
I just think it's much easier if we just worked it on land value, as we used to.
So just to, sorry.
I do want to remind us we're talking about the rates, remission and postponement policy, not about our rating of how we are rating land. I don't want to...
Just to me, it's just a glaring unfair thing that's happening out there.
Yeah, there's a wider discussion to be had here, which includes the Valuer General's recommendation, all of these types of other things. But we can definitely be up to having that conversation, maybe in the new iteration of council after October. No, I'm being facetious. But it'll be at another kind of point in time where we could have that discussion. Pauline, in its forms?
Yes, it is part of this. This was something that was not allowing us to move forward in some of the things that we have been seeing. So it is not a review of the full rates remission policy. It was only elements of it, and you cannot remit things unless you've got it within your policy. So basically, the things that are in there and what will be submitted on, you will only have those two sections where those changes are. But we were providing for you all of our rates remission policies, but acknowledging that this consultation, or what we're going out for, is only on those amendments that's within there. But there is a wider discussion that can come through within the next 10-year plan.
Sorry, I was meaning specifically like outside of the rates remission stuff that Councillor Older was talking about was more around capital value of permanent crops, and that's a bigger that's a bigger discussion which maybe we should have at some other point in time.
And that's the revenue and financing policy, yes.
Yeah.
And then the revenue and financing policy, there will be things that we need to look in the revenue and financing policy, especially with the water services new entities. We will need to look at those. And so as part of that, we come back and say, what do we need to adjust if there's something that has changed or you wish to change? So yes, these two are in conjunction. One, the remission policy, if you like, is there any unintended consequences that has occurred because of how you set your rates, or you wish to encourage behaviour, that's what the rate remission policy allow to do that. And on the other hand is how do you set your rates? So yes.
Any other questions? Councillor Thompson.
Just a scenario, if someone is entitled to one of these remissions and they weren't aware of it and they've borrowed money to pay their rates, are they able, and then later find they qualify for one of these remissions, can they have that rates refunded, or is it too late once they've paid it?
It depends on the policy, because some of them operate over a period of 3 years, and if it was in the same rating year, so for example, if a person didn't realise it at the 1st of July but did, you know, in February or March, then we would apply it back to the 1st of July.
And do we do anything to let people know about these remissions? So because I'd suggest a lot of people aren't aware of a lot of these remissions and probably borrow money to pay their rates and then later find that they could actually tick the boxes to get a remission. Do we do anything to sort of get these remissions out there?
We send out information with the first instalment every year as part of the rate assessment about our information about our rate remission policies, and we have it all on our website as well. So information goes out at the beginning of the financial year to everyone.
Thank you. And just one more question, scenario, page 70, relates to rates and pandemic. So if, for example, someone lost their job due to not taking the vaccine, have no income, are they entitled to a rates remission in that scenario?
They can apply and provide the information about hardship and exceptional circumstances that they're facing, and we would look at it.
So maybe.
Well, it's on meeting the criteria of the policy. So if they meet the criteria of the policy and provide the information, then yes, they're eligible to apply for a remission.
So if they get one of those financial budget advisory service to say they're in financial hardship, no income, then they would be eligible.
I would recommend getting them to get in contact with our staff, and the staff are able to, in the event that whānau may need to be or might be in financial hardship. I do just want to also let the councillors know as well, we're talking about the current changes to the rates, remission and postponement policy that are going out for consultation. If we keep our comments and our questions specifically to that, whether or not we want these changes in here prior to consultation with all that kind of stuff, that'll be great so that we can get this agenda moving. Councillor Gregory.
Oh, thank you. I was just going to say I'm very happy with the what the changes might be, and happy for it to go out to consultation to see what people think about these draft changes in this policy and go from there. I'll move it.
Moved by Councillor Gregory, seconded by Councillor Telford. Do we have any other questions or comments? Because if not, I'll put the paper. All those in favour? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Very much. I'll move us to, thank you very much, Mr. Greg. I'll move us to page 97, financial report.
So basically it's pretty much just where we are at for the first 10 months of the 24-25 financial year. As stated within there, where most of the changes where we thought we were going to have a greater surplus than what we anticipated is to do with the timing of the works that we're doing with capital grants. It doesn't incur any adverse impacts to council, it's just the reflection when we said adopt adoption of the plan, there are changes we anticipated we're not going to receive it, but we're actually saying let's make those changes within the annual plan for next year to accommodate those changes. So pretty much tracking of what we thought, apart from the timing of some of the capital grants. What the surplus is not surplus funds that we create from the ratepayer. It creates a surplus because when we have a called capital grant, there is no expenditure recorded in the bottom line. That surplus then is going towards paying the capital expenditure. So effectively, we only rate for what we need, and the surplus is created only from the recording of a capital grant, but there is no capital expenditure. So on the bottom line, there's a surplus. So just for clarification, it becomes a lot of people, when they see a surplus, they see that, but it's only for accounting purposes with it. And what we're anticipating is a little bit less than what we had said due to the timing of those grants. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Foreman. Councillor Telfer.
On page 98, just a clarification on carryovers on the capital expenditure. Carrying over $13 million, that's carrying it over to the next financial year. Is that what we're talking about? That's expected to be carried over? And just, is that because the reasons for that carryover, is that because we haven't had contractors available or to do this work, or that's a lot of money, $13 million worth of work that could have been done in this financial year. I'm just want a clarification of why we end up in this position where this expected work we planned on doing hasn't been done.
Yeah, so last time, and it's within the minutes of this, we had a little bit of an explanation. Most of that was when we set the 3-year plan in December 2023, we had a significant amount of roading works that we didn't know when we were going to do it or how we were going to do it, but the timing of it was just prorated over those 3 years. Now we have better information about when it's going to occur and how it's going to occur, and so it's the phasing, basically, of that. Just a clarification, and as I say, if you, just to go back to that, and it is the full discussion on page 9 through to, for the first page 10, just explains it, but basically the BAU, which is the roading network, that's going to be fully spent by the end of the year. It is only the recovery works, and the timing of that was just prorated, divided by 3 over the first 3 years, but we now know that the timing of that is different. The other parts of, just to be explained, when we were doing the 3 years plan, we had only 125 million from NIF or from the Crown. We've now secured double that as well. And so where the maturity of where we were and what we were doing, we had a placeholder for that works. It's not delayed, it's basically trucking on to where we knew that would be 3 to 5 years, but unfortunately it's going over the next financial year, and this is why you're looking at some of the variances.
Thank you very much, Ms. Foreman. Are there any other questions? Because Councillor.
Yeah, because I am confused with some of this too. So we're here on page 97, the summary, and Council's net surplus is 34.4, which is lower by 28 million. So we have a shortfall of money at this point, and yet we are anticipating carryover. And how sure are we that we're going to get these funds? There's only a lot, you know, when I used to do a budget, it was income that was anticipated, but the crop could sometimes fall short. Is there any possibility that this anticipated money could fall short?
So just for budgeting purposes, it is a timing issue. For what we do for budgeting, what is probable and can be quantifiable. So what we have said for the revenue, what we're actually estimating is the 125 million that we see from crowd, that's a given. what was a given with regards to anything that there's carryovers from woody debris, and then the flood protection. So yes, it is a given. We don't record things that we might. It's a possibility. We record things that has been confirmed. And unfortunately, it traverses 2 financial years, which is why you're seeing it. And the only parts that I can only demonstrate it because I like the numbers, and how you actually were looking at it. If you were looking on page 101 of your agenda, we've got the statement of comprehensive revenue and expenditure. Now, I'll just take you to the first underlined one. This is total revenue, and then you go down, it says net surplus deficit, where on the one that says 34.4 million for April, it compared to what we expected to be is 62, and the difference is the 28 million. You see it in brackets. If you go right up to the second line, grants, donations, revenue and contributions, capital is down by 25 million, as you can see it is in brackets, and that shows you we expected to get more in capital revenue. It hasn't for the timing. It doesn't affect anything because we haven't got any expenditure against it. So that's basically how you record it and you read it from these particular ones. On the bottom line, we're saying it's a timing issue. It's not going to affect things because it will occur in the next financial year.
Next question. Our insurance claims from floods, has all that money come through? And if not, where is it positioned in this?
So in terms of it, and we probably have more updates, the NEMA that pays 60% of the funds that we had for, which is really the below ground assets, which is for the free waters mostly, that was what's occurring, which is in water supply. We've received those and we're up to date. We've received 1.5 million for the insurance component of that, but I believe there's about 3 million that we're still talking to and working through with the insurance company. So we also knew that we were up for the first 2 odd million, because that's in the excess, that's part of the things. So that's kind of where we're at, up to date with the majority of the funds, but we're still in talks with the insurance company for the remainder.
So about 3 million?
I would have to just update that, yeah.
I think it's my last question. Oh, no, it's not. My next question, as always, is around employee benefit expenses at 37 million anticipated.
Which page are you on?
This is number 101. Under expenses, this is an 11 million increase since our term began. We spent all that time passing over a $210,000 issue earlier on. This is an 11 million increase, which equates to 11% of our rate, spread over 3 years. And this is something we have no control over. I see that, or I guess, a lot of this high, or in this case, a lot of it is anticipated. A lot of this employee benefit, or wages I'd call them, may have to do with recovery, but my concern is that when we are over recovery, which I hope is pretty soon, are we going to be able to claw back this increased wage cost?
So just, Nadine might be able to have some of the other things, but just to clarify, in terms of the increase, is mostly our expenditure is 100% more than what it was before recovery, and the majority of the cost, as you alluded to, was the capital works that's needed to occur in order to do the recovery. And while it's a line item. What you also got to be aware of that the income has increased significantly, but and how do you know that our rates hasn't increased accordingly? Is because our percentage on average it should be 60% of rates. 60% of our revenue comes from rates. During this period of time, most of it is coming from external funds, and it's only about 38%. So majority of those costs, yes, it has increased to do the work that is double what we've had to do before. But it has been coming through from the revenue that we're receiving associated with it.
That you've done a really good response.
So I don't feel my question's been answered.
Sorry, can I just, to add to that, like if you, the income, the revenue that we've received in terms of 100 and almost 200,000, and then you, a percentage of that cost to deliver the services and the capital works is about 15%. So that is generally on par, if not less, than what other councils are spending in that space. So I think you need to take in the overall picture is that we aren't in ordinary times. We have increased. A lot of this has come from the generous funding that the government has given this council, which means rates don't increase to the extent that they would have had we had to find $200 million to fund all this work ourselves. So there is a significant proportion in that budget that comes directly from our recovery work.
Right, so as we come out of recovery, can we expect that wage 37 million to come down?
You'd expect to see that come down, yes you would.
Okay.
Provided we don't have another event.
Thank you. And then my last question is about the fact that that 37 million isn't locked in because we're still trying to employ more people. And it's that shortfall of people. If we go to page 102, there is an explanation of expenses are under budget, in part vacancies which are offset by higher professional service costs. I just think it'd be nice if we could see what that offset difference was, if we could see what the professional services had gone up by on the same piece of paper. I know I've asked that before, but it would just make things look so much easier. Thank you.
I definitely hear what you're saying, and we'll definitely have it for the annual report, but we're also trying to work in to see how we can do that with the schedulings of this. It is professional services at this stage is about 200k. So you've got a 1.5 under, but the 200k is a little bit higher than what anticipated is about 200k. So it's not a quid pro quo. We're still on the right side of those overall costs.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thanks for the report. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, as we get more work, we've obviously got more expenses and we get more money coming from the government. The graph's actually in the next paper, but it mentions our actual loans. So in 2023 is 125 million. How much we borrowed, how much we owe. And in 2027, we're looking at 235 million. So you know, I'm thinking my 3 years in council, I've almost doubled the loan to the community, and yeah, that's for me that's real concerning. Like what I want to be seeing is that loan coming down and a light at the end of the tunnel, not for the loan to be like, for our council loan to almost double in 4 years is for me is crazy. Not sort of what I wanted for my term on council. You know, I've sort of mentioned how.
It's starting to talk about the Treasury report. That's the next part, like that's our debt and stuff like that. So. Did you want to respond now, or should we have that discussion in the next
probably
place?
the fuller one in the discussion, but just to bear in mind that is you've got significant capital works that you have in the program that you needed to do, most being the wastewater treatment plant. That takes that asset has a significant life. which could be in excess 50 to plus years. And so therefore it doesn't make sense to raise rates. And so therefore what you're doing is using your funding, which is a combination of borrowing, so to reflect how those assets have been used over the intergeneration, over the life of that assets. And so effectively your loans have gone up for the significant investment that is needed to do with the bulk of your infrastructure over a period of time. We estimated that peak goes down at that stage, around about 2028, but the bulk of those costs and what you were talking about in your term, you would have been seeing the wastewater treatment plant.
Ms. Gisborne?
Through the Chair, but the reality is that we now have a water entity which is going to chew up a lot of infrastructure costs and capacity, and therefore what we might have seen going down is going to continue going out. So in your time, you're probably not going to see it come down. In fact, it's just the sign of the times, and what we need to do by way of regulation and investment in our infrastructure for the region is that the debt will go up. And that's what we've been talking about. We're increasing that debt level. We want to be credit rated in order to do that because of the regulations that we deliver as a region, unfortunately.
Any other questions in regards to our financial report? If not, do I have a mover?
Happy to move.
By Councillor Foster, seconded by Councillor Gregory. All those in favour? All those opposed? Carried. I'd like to welcome Her Worship the Mayor.
Good morning.
I will take us now to page 111, our Treasury report.
Thank you, Chair. So basically this is just a recap of where it is. You have planned debt of where we expect it to be for the end of the financial year, about just under 200 million, which is 195. Currently, the external debt is 186 million. Everything is within the Treasury policies, which guides and actually has that kind of control, if you like, or reassurance that you are within those guidelines. How do we manage, how do we mitigate some of our exposure to the interest rates cost through swaps? How do you phase your borrowing so that it is not all in the time? So this policy does give you a degree of assurance of how we manage our debt over a period of time. But effectively, the external debt, as at the 30th of April, is 186 on track within our program of planned debt this financial year. Happy to take any questions.
Questions around our Treasury requirement? Because I've questioned previously, I suppose I answered in the previous report. I suppose.
I'm happy to move it.
Moved by Her Worship the Mayor, seconded by Councillor Rea. All those in favour? Aye. All those opposed? Alright, I take us to page 120, which is the pre-election report 2025. That's something that we have to release prior to an election.
Thank you. Through the Chair, so the pre-election report is a requirement that is to be produced by the Chief Executive prior to the triennial elections, and it's an information source, as many of you would have seen for the first time when you stood for council. And it's just really draws on all the data that we've got across the organisation. There should not be any surprises in here, and it's really just to present a document that shows potential candidates what they're up for, and the challenges and the opportunities and our strategies and who we are.
Awesome, thank you. Councillor Foster.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, congratulations. This is a great report, and I hope anybody anybody that's interested in council can read this and get a good idea of where we're at and what we want to achieve, and particularly those people that want to stand for the election. At the moment, there's a lot of misinformation being going around the community And I've read some stuff, I've talked to people who are just so misinformed and have this perception about what they think we do, and they have got no idea. And it's really quite concerning, actually, that some of the stuff that's going out there is going through the community with, and it's just such misinformation. It's wrong. It's totally wrong, and it shouldn't even be on paper for people to read. If you're going to put something out there, put something that's actual factual. Yeah, so I'm more than happy to move this paper, but I encourage anybody that is interested in council, or anyone wanting to stand for council in particular, to read this through before you start mouthing off in public. Thank you.
I thought I was grumpy this morning.
Thank you, Councillor Rear.
I'd like to second. I really like the Tōreo Tō Mana slogan on the drive to voting and drive to just want to commend staff on the Put Your Mana Where Your Mouth Is sections of videos with Te Ao Rere Pewhairangi. Like, those are hitting a section of our community that have been untapped for such a long time in terms of encouraging to enrol, and so many inferences can be made to put your mana where your mouth is, and some of that to the effect of what Larry said, which I'm not going to repeat. But awesome report. Thank you very much. I'll second.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, just on what Larry said, anyone wanting to stand, I'd suggest you come and sit in a council meeting and listen and just realise you can't just come here and do what you want. Our hands are our hands are tied by legislation. We might all know what we want, but you've got to learn the game and navigate and play in the system. So it's not councillors are useless. It's we have to navigate the system we're playing in. So I just encourage anyone. All our numbers are there. Come and talk to us and come and sit in a meeting. Like, educate yourself before you put your name in the hat.
Yeah, 100%, Councillor Thompson. There are also, 14 of us that sit around this table, and we have to negotiate, which was demonstrated in our third paper of the day. We had to negotiate ourselves in order to land somewhere collectively together. It's a team effort. So I do endorse your comments there, Councillor Thompson. Councillor
I
Gregory?
was just noting the two on the line.
Councillor Pahuru-Huriwai, then Councillor Parata.
Tēnā koutou. Thank you, Councillor Gregory, for letting them know we're here. I too endorse the report. It's great read, and I support what everyone else is saying in regards to those who are thinking about standing for council. I've been, telling, because I'm obviously not standing again, but telling people about, giving them some real talk about what it involves. I don't know if I'm helping the situation or putting them all off, but it's important they go and come into the space with their eyes wide open as much as we can prepare them for that. So just a point though, on page 165 with the map, our region starts at Pōtaka, does it not?
Yep.
So if it would be great if that could be included, please.
Yep, we'll do.
Kia ora. But a great report. And are there going to be hard copies available, or will this just be online?
Yes, there will be hard copies, and we do have a presentation later to share with you around the campaign. We don't want to do it in public because it will ruin the element of surprise.
Nice.
Cool. Ka pai, look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parata.
Yes, I also want to acknowledge the report, and actually, since we've been part of council, there's been quite a development in the way in which our reports have come and how they look, and particularly the kinds that are made for public consumption. What I will say to people who are entertaining the idea of running for council is sit through and read this document, and it won't be the last reading you'll do. So if you can't read it, really consider whether or not, council is for you, because the job is 90% of it is reading and comprehension. The 10% is what you see here, which is we sit around the table and we thoroughly debate each other. But actually the mahi is huge levels of reading. So I really appreciate the thought and effort that went into summarizing the mahi that we do, the mahi that we're thinking about in our work streams. And I really do encourage anyone considering running for council to sit with this document and really brace yourself for it, because it has been hard mahi. It's good mahi, but it is hard mahi, and it takes a specific set of skills and flexibility in your life. So I just want to acknowledge Nadine, you and your staff for the way that you prepare us and the way you support our community to really understand what it is that we do in the mahi of the council. And I know often in our region it seems like council are the be-all end-all answer for everything, and when you see documents like this I can understand why you would think that because it seems like we are. But yeah, it's a good scope. It's a really good scope and a really good review. It's already been moved and seconded, hasn't it? Yeah, okay. That's what I'd say.
Thank you, Councillor Parata, and keeping in line with that, we have a mover, Councillor Foster, a seconder, and Councillor Ria. All those in favour? Aye. All those opposed? Carried. Bring us to the close, or to the end of our public agenda. We have a presentation in public excluded, that's correct, Ms. Gisborne. And on that note, thank you to the masses that tuned into this live stream to come for this exciting finance and performance meeting. Councillor Cranston, you listen to public excluded. I second. All those in favour? Aye.